Everyone knows the first appearance of Boba Fett in comic books is Star Wars number 42, right? You might be surprised to hear that Boba Fett actually has 35 confirmed and 9 possible appearances in comic books that were released before Star Wars number 42. If you think this sounds crazy, stick around as we will take a look at all these comics and draw a conclusion on why Star Wars number 42 is the most valuable and desirable of these books. Boba Fett's background. Boba Fett debuted to the world on September 24, 1978 at a county fair in San Anselmo, California. He then appeared in an animated short on CBS television on November 17, 1978 in the infamous Star Wars Holiday Special. Boba Fett's rise in popularity would occur in 1979 when he was advertised as a mail-away toy for Kenner's popular 3 3/4 inch action figure line. Later in the year, the Boba Fett action figure would join the other 20 action figures on store shelves. Boba Fett's status as a fan favorite was forged in 1980 with the release of The Empire Strikes Back. Despite having only 4 lines of dialogue and 2 minutes and 38 seconds of screen time, Darth Vader's familiarity with Fett and Fett's cool demeanor cemented him as the ultimate bounty hunter in the Star Wars universe. 3 earlier United States appearances. The Empire Strikes Back film debuted in the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom on May 21, 1980. Having experienced the high demand for comics from the first movie, Marvel was better prepared for the sequel. They released the adaptation in 4 different formats. The traditional comic-size format, which ran in the Star Wars title from issue number 39 through 44, Marvel Super Special number 16, a magazine-size comic, Marvel Special Edition number 2, The Empire Strikes Back, a large treasury-size comic, and Marvel Comics Illustrated version of The Empire Strikes Back, a book from Marvel's nascent paperback line. Star Wars number 39 was released on June 24, 1980, and Star Wars number 42, the first issue in the title with a Boba Fett appearance, would not be released until September 23, 1980. All 6 issues of the adaptation contains an extra splash page of artwork which is not available in any other format. Additionally, Marvel had just increased their price to 50 cents in June, and the plan was to increase the page count to 22 pages from 17 pages across their entire comic line. They were not ready for the page count increase for Star Wars number 39 and 40, but for Star Wars number 41 through 44, they added additional material. Star Wars number 41 has a 5-page article by the comics writer Archie Goodwin, which includes useful information about Marvel's adaptation. Star Wars number 42 features a gallery of covers from the United Kingdom's The Empire Strikes Back weekly comic, and issue number 43 and 44 have 5 pages each of bonus pinup artwork from various artists. According to the comic reader, number 179, Marvel Super Special number 16 was released on May 20th, 1980. The paper in the magazine is of a higher quality than the other formats, so the colors are more vivid. The exact date for the release of the Treasury-size issue isn't known, but it is safe to assume it was also released in May. The indicia on the inside simply says Spring 1980, and spring runs from March through May. It is also referenced in the Archie Goodwin article, which implies it was part of Marvel's initial releases. The paperback version of The Empire Strikes Back is the most interesting of the trio of collected editions. According to that article in Star Wars number 42 by Archie Goodwin, the paperback book has the earliest printing date, which explains why Yoda in that format appears different than the other versions. Artist Al Williamson had to reference a Ralph McQuarrie painting for Yoda because he had no images of the character's final look to use. Before the other 3 formats went to print, Marvel was quickly able to change the Yoda image to match his final look from the film. If you just consider the United States comics, the paperback version is the first printed material, followed by Marvel Super Special number 16 and Marvel Special Edition number 2, The Empire Strikes Back. Star Wars number 42 would be the 4th printing of the pages with Boba Fett in the US. Boba Fett also appears in newspapers, and I will address that shortly. 1 earlier Canada appearance. The Empire Strikes Back movie was released in Canada and the United Kingdom in May 1980, along with the US. There is a French-Canadian version of the paperback. This version is slightly larger than its US counterpart, but it contains the original Yoda images, not the corrected images. This paperback was most likely released in May 1980. 7 earlier United Kingdom appearances. Marvel has operated in the United Kingdom since 1972, so it only makes sense they also have various formats available to readers in that country. The United Kingdom market was different than the US market, however, so the formats offered were different. The one format that is the same is the paperback. The Marvel Comics illustrated version of The Empire Strikes Back paperback was published by Arrow Books, and like the US edition, it contains the original Yoda images. This paperback has only a few subtle differences from the US version. Also published in the UK, most likely in May 1980, is The Empire Strikes Back Annual by Grand Dreams. This hardcover book collects the story pages, but the Yoda is the original, not the corrected version. 5,000 copies of this hardcover were imported to the United States, and 500 of these were signed, according to the Comic Reader number 180. Interestingly, the content of this hardcover would be combined with the Return of the Jedi adaptation in another Grand Dreams book released in 1984 titled Star Wars Special Edition. This is the last printed example of a comic featuring the original Yoda pages that I was able to uncover. The better known Boba Fett appearances are in the Empire Strikes Back weekly title. The adaptation ran in this title from May 29, 1980 to September 25, 1980, which means all of the Boba Fett appearances in these issues occur before Star Wars number 42. These comics contain the earlier Yoda images, but also include the extra splash pages from Star Wars number 39 through 44. One US issue is spread across 3 UK issues. The first appearance of Boba Fett in this title is in Star Wars Weekly number 127, which contains the extra splash page used in Star Wars number 42. On this page is Boba Fett, Dengar, Bossk, and Zukas. The image on this page would be used on the cover for Star Wars Weekly number 129, which is the first cover appearance of Boba Fett in comics. Boba Fett would appear again in issue number 131, 132, and 133, which are all published before Star Wars number 42. 24 earlier newspaper comic book appearances. A Star Wars newspaper strip began on March 11, 1979 by Russ Manning. Boba Fett would appear in the newspaper strip from June 17, 1980 to August 10, 1980 in a story called The Frozen World of Oda. These appearances predate Star Wars number 42. The daily strip would advance the story, and on Sundays, the daily strips would be summarized in a full page in color. In Canada, these full page color strips were printed on Saturdays. Comic strips in newspapers are not comic books, so why am I including them here? It turns out 3 newspapers, 1 in the United States and 2 in Canada, published the Boba Fett story in comic book format. Some of the earliest comic books are simply collections of newspaper strips, so I consider these newspaper offerings comic books. The Sunday comic strip is on only 1 page of these comics. The Lake County News-Herald is an Ohio newspaper that printed comic books collecting their Sunday strip offerings. The Boba Fett story was published in the Lake County News-Herald Comic Book Volume 3, number 25 through 32. These weekly comics were printed from June 22nd to August 10th, 1980. One Canadian newspaper that also published the Boba Fett story is the Winnipeg Tribune. The Trib Comic Book, Volume 4, number 25 through 32, from June 21st to August 9th, 1980, published 1 day earlier than the U.S. comics, contains the 8 Sunday strips. The harder to find newspaper comic books with the Boba Fett story are from the Calgary Herald. The Calgary Herald Comic Book, Volume 3, number 31 through 38, was also published from June 21st to August 9th, 1980. There are other newspaper comic books containing other Star Wars stories, and if there is interest, I will create a future video about this. 9 other earlier appearances. I'm pretty confident the 35 comics I've mentioned so far all came out before Star Wars number 42. There are 9 additional comics that may have predated Star Wars number 42, but I cannot be sure. I will mention them here quickly. The Empire Strikes Back was released in Japan in June 1980. TV Land Comics Deluxe, Marvel Comics Presents The Empire Strikes Back, was published in 1980, most likely to coincide with the movie's release. This dust jacket covered paperback is titled, in English, the Marvel Comics illustrated version of The Empire Strikes Back on the copyright page. The rest of the comic is in Japanese. The interior is similar to the paperback published in the US, except this book contains the correct Yoda images. There has been an unconfirmed rumor for many years about a second edition of the US Marvel Comics illustrated version of The Empire Strikes Back, which has the modified images, and I believe this book is a source of those rumors. The paperback published by Arrow Books was also distributed to the Australian market. Additionally, Australia also saw the distribution of the Marvel Special Edition Treasury-sized comic. The Australian copy of this comic has a blank price box. Not many countries distributed a Treasury-sized comic for the movie. The Nordic countries of Sweden, Finland, Norway, and Denmark all saw The Empire Strikes Back released in August 1980. A month before Star Wars number 42. All 4 countries released comic albums in 1980 that contained the Empire Strikes Back adaptation. It is likely these comics were published to coincide with the film's release in those countries. France also saw the release of the Empire Strikes Back film in August 1980. Editions Lug published the adaptation for French readers. Italy has 2 formats available for Italian readers. Italy received the movie in early September 1980. The paperback offering contains the original Yoda images, and an album collection has the modified pictures. Conclusion. There may be other comic books containing Boba Fett that predate Star Wars number 42 that I've missed in this video. When I was researching this, I made an assumption that the comic adaptation of Empire would not be published in a country prior to the movie being released there. This assumption greatly narrowed the comics I considered. If you're aware of a comic that was available prior to September 23rd, 1980, that contains a Boba Fett comic appearance, and I did not include it here, please mention it in the comments. If all these comics came out before Star Wars number 42, why do so many consider that comic the first Boba Fett comic appearance, and why is it the most desirable? I have a simple answer for this one. This book is in the standard format everyone thinks of when they think of comics. This issue was published in the United States, and most importantly, Boba Fett is front and center on the cover. While Boba Fett only has a cameo on the inside of this comic, the cover drives the demand in a collector's market where the cover takes precedence over most other considerations. If collectors really wanted the first appearance of Boba Fett in comics, they would be more inclined to pick up his true first appearance in the Marvel Comics illustrated version of The Empire Strikes Back paperback. A factor to consider, which I think greatly diminishes the value of this book, is for many years, the big grading companies, most notably CGC, did not grade paperbacks. For this reason, many comic collectors don't collect them. Marvel Super Special number 16 has more of a demand because it has been gradable for many years. Notice Marvel Special Edition number 2 also languishes along with the paperback, again, because CGC does not grade Treasury-sized books. That explains the demand for the different US formats, but what about the Empire Strikes Back Weekly number 129 from the UK, which does have a Boba Fett cover? The weekly issue did come out first, but it has a few aspects that hold it back. For one, the cover artwork is not original. It is just reused artwork from an interior page. Another problem is it is in that pesky magazine-sized format, and collectors prefer traditional sized comics. Finally, it is a foreign comic book. Over the years, there has been an effort by some collecting communities to discover comics created outside the United States, and I feel Star Wars comic collectors have been at the forefront of this movement. A small but growing group of foreign comic collectors exists, and they have brought attention to many cool foreign books like this UK issue. I think that awareness has created a demand of sorts for this book. I don't know if it will ever be as valuable as Star Wars number 42, but that's okay. Like the different US formats, collectors need to decide for themselves what is important for their collections. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe so I can bring you more content, and please leave a comment below.